Time for Common Sense America with Eden Cornell. Yeah.
And good morning, Common Sense America. I'm Eden Hill. How are you guys doing on this Tuesday? And it's Tuesday, May the 30th. Yes, we only have a couple days left in the month of May. Military Appreciation, Spouse Appreciation, Armed Forces, and Memorial Day. I know we had a long weekend here at Common Sense America. And, you know, as we talked about last week, Memorial Day is talked about, celebrated in many different ways. I know for us here at Common Sense America, it isn't necessarily about doing the picnics and gathering. It is more of a reflection and a time to remember those who have died for our freedoms. And I think so many people forget about that. And I was listening to TNT Radio yesterday. If you have not had a chance to check out TNT Radio, I had quite a few friends and those who I represent join State of the Nation. And they talked a lot about Memorial Day, honoring those who have fallen, honoring those who have gone before us, their stories, their footsteps, their journey for our freedoms. And so I'm thankful to TNT Radio for having so many great veterans and veteran spouses join their show yesterday afternoon. You know, I'm sitting here with my coffee cup. I don't know if you can see it. Hold on a second. America the Beautiful. It's a Ray Dunn mug I got this weekend at an antique shop. Yes, I've already had 2.5 to 3 mugs of Zabar's coffee this morning. But as I'm talking to you this morning, it is a beautiful day here in Eastern North Carolina, but it's also a time for our nation to come together as we celebrate the patriotic months this summer. We have our apple pie, we have our July 4th parades, we have our services to remember those, and we are coming together, you know, to kind of rest and refresh, but also to prepare for what's ahead in this nation. And one of the things that I always talk about here at Common Sense America is about our God, our country, and our family. And I can't stress that enough. My heart is with each and every one of you as we head into the summer season. And there's a couple things, you know, why I wanted to talk about veterans today. And for those who last minute didn't see that I was doing a veteran topic today, you guys are not surprised, because it is a very important topic. I'm a veteran spouse. We live in a veteran community, and we live in a military family and military community. So those 3 topics are very important to me. And I have heard rumors. And, you know, here at Common Sense America, we're talking about rumors, but we're also talking about truth and fact and what is ahead for this our nation, the United States of America, the flag that still flies with the red, white, and blue. But there are a lot of rumors of things to happen. And so as we continue to do this podcast until I'm taken off the airways, I'm going to talk about how we need to prepare, our families, how we need to prepare those who are veterans, those who have medical needs, how we need to prepare for what could be ahead. And, you know, for all of those who are out there who, you know, want to hide underneath the rock for the day. Okay, I'll give you the rock for today, but tomorrow you need to wake up, because you got a journey ahead of you. You got footsteps that you need to take, and you have a faith that is asking you to take leaps of faith for the greater good, our country, our families, our faith. That's what this show is about. So rumors, but not so. It's in print. And I'm going to go sidebar for a second here. Tideland News, which is local here to Eastern North Carolina. You know, the week of May the 10th, they put out this newspaper front page, and it was focusing on National Day of Prayer. We all know the importance of National Day of Prayer. I've participated in it over the past couple years. Also was asked to speak and also to pray. This year, unfortunately, I was not able to. We were moving literally that same day. I had an educator here in Eastern North Carolina reach out to me and say, "Hey, Eden, I just wanted to show this to you. What can we do about this?" And I said, "Do about what?" The front of the Tideland News shows National Day of Prayer, a picture. And it says, "Gathering to pray as a country." And the picture is a drone picture, and it doesn't even describe the beauty of that day. It shows a handful of people, and the story it's telling is, and the story it told to others that approached me about this story is, it doesn't show the importance of National Day of Prayer. What it's doing is taking away from the importance of it. It's demeaning it by this awful picture, this drone picture that shows nothing. So this isn't just for the rumors corner, but this is true. This is on the front page of the Thailand News. So the educator asked me, what can I do about this? It really took away from the importance of the day, the meaning of the day, and those who came around to make the day possible, both in Onslow County, Carteret County, Craven County. And I said, and they said, can we write letters to the editor? I said, you could. But I said, this newspaper doesn't have a big audience to it. They don't really care, to be honest with you. And I said, the more power you have is going to be on the radio waves. You need to talk to the radio waves. Talk to the local radio shows. Because conservative outlets are radio. But the bigger piece of it is, it's the censorship. It's the culture wars. It's what I always talk about here at Common Sense America. People of faith, they are trying to censor us. And the National Day of Prayer has a huge impact around this nation, whether the Thailand News wanted to highlight it or not. But what they propose is journalistic images, and just barely a paragraph about it is awful journalism, especially as Eastern North Carolina is one of the biggest red parts to the state. There are still a lot of people here that believe in our God, believe in our country, and believe in our family. It's not a rumor. It was printed right here in the front of this newspaper. You know how we heard those rumors about veterans being evicted from the hotels in upstate New York for the migrants coming through? You know how we hear about veterans being denied care because of the red tape that gets in the way? You know how we hear about veteran caregivers who are struggling to figure out, they've been denied the veteran caregiver program, but yet the veteran administration wants to give them opportunities to study and figure out how they can best handle it during that time period? Those aren't rumors, ladies and gentlemen. This is the real deal. This is the real deal. So this morning, I'm bringing over to the show, whether you're watching it now or whether you're going to watch it later, go over to my YouTube channel, Common Sense America with Eden Hill. I'm on all the social channels, ladies and gentlemen, all the social channels. We have this morning joining us Larry McCartney, Master Gunnery Sergeant, retired. They also call him Mac. He has served 2 Vietnam tours, one in Haiti, a few trips back to Vietnam after the war. He is a veteran advocate helping the veterans and their family members through the triage of the Veterans Administration. So good morning, Mac. Thank you so much for joining us here at Common Sense America. It's an honor to get to know you. Thank you. Okay, go ahead. I had you on mute for a second. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Mac, it's great to have you here this morning. Thank you so much for joining Common Sense America on this Tuesday after Memorial Day. You know, I'm thankful to Jim Zumwalt and Stu for introducing us. Thank you for doing TNT Radio last evening. And thank you for what you have done for this nation, your footsteps, your faith, your journey to provide my freedom, the next generation's freedom, my husband's freedom, my family's freedom. Thank you for what you have done.
It's been my honor, ma'am, my privilege.
Now, where are you coming from this morning?
I live on the mountains of Western North Carolina.
Do you really? So we have another North Carolina gentleman on the show this morning.
I'm sorry, what you say, ma'am?
I have another North Carolina gentleman in my life this morning and on the show. My husband is from Kinston, North Carolina, and he is
Oh,
Army retired. And I'm constantly being surrounded by North Carolinian gentlemen.
thank you.
So I would love to talk with you about your thoughts on yesterday on Memorial Day. I didn't see a lot of news coverage yesterday. I saw more news coverage about everything else but Memorial Day. What are your thoughts on where our nation is in regards to understanding the importance of Memorial Day?
I think that we have lost a lot of that appreciation that we had when I was a little boy. I can remember Memorial Day parades and going to Memorial Day services and memorials, and we don't see that anymore.
Why do you think that is?
I think that that's a variety of reasons. I don't think there's any one simple answer to that. But I think that what we see in society in general, whether it's the news media or the education system or the work environment or whatever it is, we don't see it anymore.
What do you think we could do as concerned citizens of this great nation to recognize Memorial Day for what it is, the importance of it? You know, yesterday and today, I was looking on my social media feeds and I saw parades in upstate New York, parades in Pennsylvania. But then I stopped. And I live here in Eastern North Carolina, which is a huge military family area, retired area. I know that there were services yesterday, but I didn't hear much of any Memorial Day parades. Why? My heart hurts when I don't see the parades anymore. And I remember last year they had to cancel the Veterans Day parade here in Eastern North Carolina because nobody wanted to get involved. Nobody wanted to do it. And it was so hard for me to wrap my brain around that. Do you have any thoughts on that?
My biggest thought is people are afraid to show their patriotism, to show their love for their country, because they fear retaliation. They fear, going out to a parade and being physically attacked, and whether it's with the hands or whether it's just verbally. I think that there's an intense amount of stress placed on people today to not get involved because it's not politically correct. I think the whole atmosphere of political correctness is dictated by outside forces telling us what we can believe and what we can't believe and what we can say and what we can't say. And people get very irritated at me because I don't care. I say what I think. And if they don't like it, well, I'm on the radio, so I better keep it coming. If they don't like it, that's just plain too bad.
Right. I completely applaud you and agree with you 110%. I have been on this show for about 8 months now, and I was censored. And, I sat there and thought about it, and I've had people comment, well, you shouldn't say this or you shouldn't say that. And then my husband pipes in and says, say whatever you want. It's your show. And I am sitting here on conviction, on fighting for our country, on believing in my God, believing in what you and my husband did and my grandfather did and my father-in-law did for this nation, and not wanting to give up on this dictatorship and this authority. I don't want to be dictated. I don't want to live under a dictator, as I call Biden. I don't want to live under that anymore. And we have been for the past 3 years. I saw a veteran this weekend at an event, MP, Army, and he had a Trump hat on. And I didn't say we were going to do politics, but I'm going to bring this up because I served in the Trump administration. He had a Trump hat on, and I said, I can't wait for another year, another 4 years of Trump. And he said, and I said, we can't take another year of Biden. And then he said, you know what? We can't take another second of Biden. because of the dictator and authoritarian mentality that he is taking over on this nation. It's taking a toll, and it's just like what you said. People don't want to get involved anymore. They're afraid to. And I love the fact that you were standing up for our veterans and for this country, as am I. Talk to me about being a veteran advocate and how long you've been doing this for our veterans.
I've been a veterans advocate for going on 30 years now. I retired from the Marine Corps in 1997, and I recognized that I had issues. I already had some physical issues that were being taken care of by the VA. My hearing, my blood pressure, my shoulder muscle injury that makes it hard for me to lift things and carry things. But I started noticing other issues: sleeplessness, lack of sensitivity and feeling. I've been divorced and never remarried, so I went to the Department of Veterans Affairs and to get more help, and I found that the VA had two stovepipes. One stovepipe is the benefits side, and the other stovepipe is the medical side. And it's they do communicate with each other, but the communication can be very difficult. And if the communication is difficult, then it's difficult to get the treatment you need because your records are on the benefit side, and they have to get them transferred on over. And I worked that bureaucracy and learned that bureaucracy and came to understand how it worked and was able to get help. And, I'm still not married. I still don't have, an outside relationship, but at least I recognize why now, and I'm able to deal with it. And, I still don't sleep well, but I get the help that I'm now able to sleep well. Once I started realizing that I had the issues, and I reconnected with some guys I served with in Vietnam through veterans groups, and realized that they had the same issues. And realized that I wasn't alone because I knew how to navigate the bureaucracy. I started helping them, and the word got on out, and I started getting more and more calls from people, and I would sit and I would listen to their issues and what was going on, and direct them, point them in the right direction. Generally speaking, I would say, okay, based on what you've told me, you have these conditions that you need to have the VA take a look at. And the best way to do that is to get a hold of a veteran service officer. And at the time, I referred them to the Disabled American Veterans because they had what I thought was the best veteran service officers. And at the time they did. Now I direct people to their county veteran service officer as long as their county, they live in a state that has a county veteran service officer, because the county veteran service officer program is really set up differently than the VA or the VFW or the American Legion or the Military Order of the Purple Heart or the AMVETS, some of the other veteran service organizations. They have veteran service officers, and they can be very good, but it all depends on locale. And generally speaking, I found that the county veteran service officers are the best. And I tell people to go to see the county veteran service officer and to file a claim. This is what they want to be examined for, and generally, and I help them and support them going through the process, and get phone calls from them even years later saying, "Hey, thanks, things are great now. I'm seeing a doctor. I'm sleeping better now," and that was directly off of my experience. I just would sleep for a couple hours and then wake up, and then go back to sleep for a couple hours and wake up, and come to realize that just came from the old foxhole night watch mentality of many years ago. So I started taking a prescription drug, and then I was sleeping so well, the doctor took me off the prescription drug and put me on a non-prescription drug, which I had talked with him about. And yeah, I would much rather be on a non-prescription drug.
Yes.
And I won't mention any names because I don't want to be out there making diagnosis and things along that line. That's something for a doctor to do.
Yeah.
I just know that the non-prescription drug did me a world of good, and now I go to sleep and I sleep 6-7 hours a night. Maybe wake up once during the night, then able to roll over and go back to sleep again. And that is just such a godsend. I feel so much better. It's helped me lose weight because I put on a lot of weight after I retired, and I was physically sick for a while. But once I healed from that, I still had to wait, and I had to take that off. And by sleeping better, I'm able to get a little more exercise and eat more regularly. And as a result, I've managed to lose a good bit of weight. I still have a good bit more to lose, but I'm doing much better now.
I applaud you, and I can tell how you are sitting there across from me. And I have to say, I have to just do this sidebar for all of those who know me and love me well. They know how much I love Christmas. And I have to ask, have you ever been a Santa Claus? Because that beard is just doing it.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Have you ever been a Santa Claus? Because your beard is just perfect.
Oh, I have a great niece that calls me Santa Larry. I've done some volunteer gigs, but I have a large family, a lot of brothers and sisters, so I've got a lot of nieces and nephews and great nieces and nephews. And the one great niece, she was about 4 years old, and she saw me and she called me Santa Larry, and I've been Santa Larry ever since.
I love it. I love it. Can you share more about the veteran service officer in the counties? Can you talk more to that for those veterans and caregivers out there who may not be in a state that has that, or are in a state that has it and didn't realize it?
Yeah, what you need to do is you need to call your county. And you just go online and look in the county directory and do a search for service officer, veteran service officer.
Okay.
And generally speaking, every county has one. And I know that they, like I said, they're set up slightly different program as are the veterans service organizations, but they know how to navigate the system. As an example, and they know how to look for non-traditional type of incident issues. As an example, several years ago, my uncle, who was in his 80s, he had Parkinson's and he was bedridden, and he had been a boxer in the Navy. As a matter of fact, he was recruited into the Navy because he was a Golden Gloves champion in the area in his weight class. He had Parkinson's, and I knew that the late heavyweight boxer Muhammad Ali had died from Parkinson's.
Right.
And I did some research online and found the connection and got my uncle and my aunt to file a claim, and went through the county veteran service officer, a guy by the name of Chuck Coe in Lucas County, Ohio, Toledo, Ohio, where my uncle was living. And Chuck went through the system and got my uncle service connected for Parkinson's disease because of the brain damage from boxing. While he was in service, because it was documented that in his medical records that he had had intense headaches, and this was in the 1950s, that he had intense headaches after boxing matches. And of course, back in those days, they called it concussion.
Right.
After they called it concussion, they started calling it closed head injury. And then after they recently, within the last few years, they started calling it traumatic brain injury.
Right.
So too often, if you file a claim and you don't use the magic words like traumatic brain injury, because that's not what was in his records 50, 60 years ago, the
Right.
VA is going to deny you. So you have to turn around and file a notice of disagreement and saying it's in his records documented as concussion. Concussion is now known as traumatic brain injury. So yes, it is in his records. And so, yes, it is legitimately service connected. And, going through that type of a procedure,
Right.
we got my uncle service connected for traumatic brain injury. And, for the Parkinson's, it was a result of traumatic brain injury. My uncle passed away 3 years ago. But after he passed away, my aunt was eligible for dependent indemnity compensation, which is roughly half of the disability compensation. And that dependent indemnity compensation should be automatic once the veteran is service connected, but is not always automatic, and you have to go back with the VA and file a claim for dependent indemnity compensation. And that has helped my aunt tremendously in her life now, because she's now in a nursing home. And having that dependent indemnity compensation, well, it's not really a nursing home; it's assisted living.
Right.
Because she's not in a situation where she needs constant nursing care. But by having that DIC, dependent indemnity compensation, that helps her pay the bills, and that's very important, because my uncle had been a brick mason all his life, and he had retired from brick mason when he was in his 60s, 30 years ago, and the retirement is not indexed for inflation. So he was getting Social Security, which was indexed for inflation, but was based on his wages when he retired over 30 years ago. So the income was really very low, and something like a dependent indemnity compensation was just a godsend to help my aunt. And that's what veterans and their spouses need to know. And I've spoken with and have constant contact with several spouses because they needed and got the support, and they're able to now live independent lives. And because of their health, they're not in a nursing home. They're able to live in their own homes, but would not be able to do that if they did not have the DIC support.
Let me ask you this: talk to me about the caregiver program through the VA. Talk to me about the patient advocate piece there, the patient support piece, if you will, that's designated to the different VA locations around the nation. Talk to me about that process, and have you worked with spouses or caregivers, if you will, through that process and the appeal process?
Well, thank you very much, because that reminded me of a point that I had failed to make just a minute ago when I was speaking. And when I'm talking about DIC, DIC is important because very often the spouse sacrifices their career to be the caregiver for their spouse,
Right.
and so they have very much earned that DIC because this veteran has been able to live a normal life in a home environment with family, as opposed to being warehoused in some kind of a nursing home.
Right.
And so what the spouse getting DIC then is able to get other benefits, because when the veteran's condition worsens, so that they're not able to get out of bed, like my uncle was bedridden, then there are programs called aid and assistance that the veteran files for, again through the veteran service officer. And I I emphasize that I'm a veterans advocate and not a qualified veteran service officer, because I'm not up to date on all of the laws and the changes in the laws and the policies and procedures. The veteran service officer is. So I refer people to the VSO because they know what's most current and how to file for it. But programs such as aid and assistance, for the bedridden, and then additional assistance if somebody has to be put into a nursing home, because you can get visiting nurses and keep them in the home. If that's possible, if the medical condition allows for that, and that of course requires a doctor signing off on it. Frequently, the individual is seeing a private physician, and in order to do that, that has to go through a VA physician. And that's where the Veterans Service Officer can help navigate, because a VA will assign a physician, and that physician will consult with the civilian physician, and then turn around and write a prescription supporting what the civilian physician has prescribed. And so that, again, that helps the veteran, and it helps the spouse and the children, or any other caregivers that are involved in taking care of a veteran, such as my uncle, who had Parkinson's and was bedridden and needed constant help. But he got it, and he was living in his own home, and he was far more comfortable in his own home. Yes, he had the VA provided a hospital bed that was in the family room, but he could turn the television on and off when he wanted, he could converse when he wanted, and that's important.
Let me ask you, knowing that the VA tends to really clog up the system with their bureaucratic red tape, and it really can defeat, you talk about the triage of the VA. How do you say to the guardian, the spouse, the caregiver, what do you say to them as they are trying to get things done? Say they're trying to apply for the DIC, say they're trying to apply for aid and assist, and the timing and the red tape that slows everything down, because you and I both know how slow the VA works, how slow the government works. They're quick to take our money, but they're slow to really help veterans. So what do you say to family members who are taking care of veterans through the VSO, for example? Does the VSO speed up the process if it is something that needs to be done yesterday? Or are they, what is it like to go through that process for a spouse, a guardian, a caregiver, etc.?
I tell the caregiver, the spouse, the veteran, don't give up. Dig in your heels, fight. They'll send you the VA will send you a decision that approves you, and in approving you, like my uncle, they approved him 30% disabled. And I said, no, file a notice of disagreement, NOD, a nod. Tell them that they, you've got the decision that says, yes, it's service connected. Now you have to tell them that the condition is worse than what you're recognizing it for. And they need to recognize it at the proper level based on what the doctor has said. And if the doctor said that the veteran is critically disabled, I'm searching for the word right now. Not critical is the best synonym I can think of. Then 30% does not recognize critical. And so you go back and file a notice of disagreement, and the VSO will agree with you, and they will help you file it, and they will help you navigate it. And generally, a VSO can make things happen faster.
Mhm.
then because they know the bureaucracy, and with the veteran, you know, we have an attitude that the VA will stonewall you,
Yes.
and the expression that we use is deny until they die,
Right.
because once they die, the claim goes away. So dig in your heels and don't let them stonewall you. And the
Mhm.
veteran service officer generally will help you navigate that bureaucracy and get it approved faster. You just dig in your heels. Don't quit. You've got it coming. You earned it. This is not welfare. This
Right.
is this is workers' compensation, and I haven't heard too many people use the analogy of calling it workers' compensation, but that's the best way that I can think to compare it, because blue collar working class America, such as those of us who served, we don't like welfare, and
Right.
we like to earn our living. Well, workers' compensation is part of the wages that we were paid while we were earning our living,
Mhm.
and accept that,
Mhm.
and keep digging in your heels and keep fighting, and just push it on up, because invariably they will approve it. My uncle and me too. I was approved at 30%, and I said, no, this is wrong. This does not recognize my level of disability. This does not recognize the impact that my military service had on my ability to earn a living. And my wages that I earned were greatly reduced despite my education and experience, because of the impact on my service had on my ability in the work environment, whether it's physical or whether it's emotional.
Mhm. What do you think, after all of the different service members that you have helped through the years, what are the things that you think as recommendations to the VA that they could change to better help the veteran and their caregiver?
Well, for one thing, they've got to improve communications. They've got to you know, better train their workers at the lower levels. The clerks that do the initial records review when you submit a claim. There is such a backlog of claims that the clerks are pushed to get claims off their desk. So often, as the feeling among veterans is, they'll deny you so that they can get it off their desk, because then it is shown as a resolved claim. And when you file a notice of disagreement, then that's an appeal. And
Right.
it's not a new claim. So
Right.
now they don't have this huge backlog of new claims on their desk because
Right.
they've been denied. And a lot of veterans accept the denial and say, oh, I must not qualify, whereas other veterans will appeal, and file a notice of disagreement, but that goes into a different stack,
Mhm.
and it's not reported as a new claims. And then the veterans, the VA can then report that new claims are down and that new claims are being resolved faster. And so the VA needs to better train their people so that they can resolve claims without having to deny them.
Mhm.
And one of the big things that they have to do is you have to look for the magic words, in a claim, such as, like I was describing with my uncle, traumatic brain injury.
Right.
If you put in concussion and don't put in traumatic brain injury, then you'll get denied.
Mhm.
But if you put in traumatic brain injury as a result of a concussion that is documented in his records, then they say, oh, okay, this is a different a ball game, and generally speaking, they will approve it, or at least send it to their supervisor, pending approval, and then so it's a training issue with the VA, and part of the training issue is they have a high turnover. They have a high turnover because it's a low-paid job,
Right.
and so it has to be a high-skill, higher-paid job, and there must be career advancement within the claims process.
Well, let's talk about another issue that goes along with this whole process, and that is looking around on our city streets. We both live here in East and North Carolina. But when you look to New York City, you look to Washington, D.C., you look to Philadelphia, you look to Los Angeles, California, you look to all the big cities in this nation, the homeless veteran population is massive. And we also see the numbers that are not going down in veteran suicide. What do you say to the veteran homeless population? Is it because they fell through the cracks with the VA, or is it that they have just given up, like you said, dig in your heels and don't give up? Or is it that they have lost all sense of purpose when they came back and they finished up their time in the service? What do you think it is? What is the reasoning behind all of that?
That's a very good question, and I've got multiple thoughts on that. One of my thoughts is the homeless population that you see on the streets. A lot of people are claiming that they're veterans, and they're not. But they claim they're veterans because it's convenient and helps them get some sympathy. I have seen so many veteran panhandlers, homeless veterans, please help. And in one case, I remember an incident. This is back, and this is one of the things that got me started in helping veterans advocates. There was a guy in a wheelchair, and he would be at park outside of the local bank, and he would actually be abusive, trying to get people to panhandling and give them money. And one day he was seen walking down the street, and he was identified as the same guy that was in the wheelchair. And he got hit by a car. He was not in his wheelchair, and it killed him. And I feel sorry for the guy, but here was a guy that was impersonating a veteran in order to get sympathy and to get help. And a number of false claims of people who claim to be veterans and actually fight the VA and get veterans benefits is astronomical. And so that's one side of my thought. As to the huge homeless veteran population. The other side of my thought is, yes, a lot of these guys filed a claim and were denied and said, "Oh, geez, I must not qualify," and accepted denial instead of digging in their heels and fighting. And most of these people had no support system.
Right.
And I think that that's really the biggest issue, is to have a support system out there, so that when a veteran is discharged, the veteran knows where to go and knows who to talk with to get help. A lot of these veterans, homeless veterans, were discharged because of substance abuse problems. And those substance abuse problems were either identified in the military or developed afterwards. And so, again, they need the support system in order to navigate their way through this system and get the help that they need, the help that they earn and that they deserve. Some of them, unfortunately, were discharged with less than honorable discharges. And if they were discharged with a less than honorable discharge, they may qualify for some veterans benefits, but not for all veterans benefits. And in many cases, those veterans, those less than honorable discharges were unjustified. In a lot of cases, they were justified. So they need to review their their discharges if it was a less than honorable discharge, and ask in the support system, get them the help to review that discharge. I had a case, a guy I actually served with 50 years ago. I served with him in 1968, and he was discharged back in those days, they called it an undesirable discharge. Now that discharge is called a general discharge under other than honorable conditions. And he was discharged because of constant AWOL. In the Marine Corps, we call it UA, unauthorized absence. And it was because of the onset of PTSD that was not recognized in 1970. PTSD did not enter the diagnostic manual DSM-3 until 1980. And this young man, he's older than me. This man received an other than honorable discharge, and because of the UA, and he was actually taken to through the disciplinary system, and he was offered a discharge, an undesirable discharge right now, and you walk out the gate, or you go to court martial and get convicted, then we're going to lock you up for 6 months and give you a dishonorable discharge, or discharge. I'm stripping gears right now. It's not going to be, it's going to be the same. You're going to get the same kind of discharge, but you'll be locked up for 6 months. And all he wanted was to get on out. Right. Well, 7-8 years later, when President Carter was elected, he pardoned the draft dodgers, what we call the draft dodgers, people who refuse military service. Right. At the same time, he issued a pardon to people with other than honorable discharges under certain conditions. So this guy's discharge was upgraded to a general, but he still could not get VA benefits. We were able to navigate the system and look at his discharge, and this was because of a VFW service officer, VSO, Veteran Service Officer, now deceased, that looked at it and said, wait a minute. He had counsel. It's traditional in the Marine Corps, they assign an officer to be your counsel. This guy, this officer, counseled him to accept a discharge rather than to go to court martial and get locked up. But this officer, this counsel, was not a JAG qualified lawyer. And for a long-term benefit, the courts have ruled after this guy was a discharge that he had to be a JAG qualified lawyer in order to counsel you to take the discharge. So they appealed based on that, and he won the appeal. And so his discharge was not upgraded. He had a general under honorable conditions instead of a general other than honorable conditions, but he now got his benefits. And so you need that kind of support system. You need veterans advocates and veteran service officers, at all levels, and you need your network of people you served with in the military. You need the VFW and the American Legion, and the organizations that have homes, have a physical location where people gather, so that you can network and find out who knows what and find it and fight it. And a lot of these people that you see as homeless veterans don't have that. And a lot of that is because of substance abuse. I would have to say the overall majority is because of substance abuse. And that substance abuse may have started while serving. It may have impacted their service and their nature of their discharge, or it may not have. But we need to take a look at that. And I think that, this is somewhat radical, but I think that if somebody did something to get an other than honorable discharge, fine, the military should do that. Go ahead and kick them on out, because they do have a mission that has to be accomplished. And if your substance abuse, or medical condition, or whatever it is, affects the ability to accomplish the mission, then they need to move you on out so they can get somebody in there to accomplish that mission. But I
Right.
think that if you're discharged, you should still get benefits for any condition that occurred while in military service. I don't care, what it is, that caused the discharge. If you have started abusing substances because you couldn't go through the chain of command to get help. The chain of command didn't help you, and you started doing things to get kicked on out. Then by all means, we need to take care of that individual, even though their performance required and justified and other than honorable discharge. And probably the one thing that jumps out in my mind as being the biggest indicator of that is military sexual trauma. The number of women that are raped or forced into relationships. Back in 30 years ago, a whole lot of men went to general court martial for rape, and a lot of them said that it was not rape, that it was consensual sex. And the courts all ruled that sex in a senior subordinate relationship is by definition under duress, and duress can never be consensual. Duress is, by its very nature, rape. If a woman has been raped, then she deserves veterans benefits, veterans help through the veterans system, even if her performance after that justified a bad discharge. Generally speaking, that bad discharge was because of behavior, and that behavior was because of a lack of support from the chain of command. So whether the government reviews and upgrades the discharge is a separate issue. She still needs the help now, and that applies to combat veterans at all levels. That applies to non-combat veterans. If you were in a truck accident, training to go to war, and broke your leg, and now you have a hard time walking, and you can't do a job, then by God, you need veterans benefits so that you can learn a job that you can do sitting down.
Right. We only have a few minutes left before the end of this podcast here at Common Sense America. But Mac, I wanted to ask you one other question, and then I'd like to have you come back and we can do another segment for veterans focused on the burn pits, on and what is happening now, and what our military is headed into within this next year, and what does it look like on the political outlook. I want to talk about those things. Obviously, we'll do that for another segment because there's so much more to talk with you about. You are a wealth of knowledge, and I can hear them working on your house. You mentioned that they were working. So my final question to you for this segment is, talk to me about the suicide piece of our veterans. The number hasn't gone down, and with the suicide prevention, with the quote medication that the VA prescribes, with the VFW, the American Legion, all your veteran service organizations, your veteran service officers, you would think that the numbers of suicides would decrease, but it's not. What are your thoughts on the veteran suicide numbers?
Well, I always thought that, and one thing that has always helped me is I've always thought that suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. That has helped me gut my way through it. But again, I think the important thing is the support network and learning and knowing what kind of meds you're taking and not mixing meds, and mixing meds with alcohol, and not knowing and not realizing what you're doing. I think that there's a real need for awareness and a real need, awareness on the individual's part. But there's a real need for a support system as well. Yet I have absolutely no doubt that the VA is over medicating people. There's a thought, I don't know how prevalent it is now, but 10 years ago, the thought was that the VA was prescribing, diagnosing somebody with PTSD and prescribing drugs for it because that boosted the numbers. And if it boosted the numbers, then they got more funding, and their programs got more funding. And if their programs got more funding, then they got a pay raise. And so I think that there's a real need to combat that, to dig in your heels and say, I've got PTSD. I don't need drugs. I need therapy, psychotherapy, which has helped me tremendously so that I can understand and go through and resolve the issues and learn how to deal with the issues and not have to take these drugs. It's just like my saying earlier that I'm not taking prescription drugs to sleep anymore. I'm taking an over-the-counter medication. And I think that we need to really very much push the VA to, in their psychotherapy programs, to hire qualified therapists and, not to just keep pushing drugs on them because that, in effect, it pushed me out of the VA system, that part of the VA system. I see a private psychotherapist now, and she does me a world of good. But I just, I don't have a lot of respect or trust for the VA medical system, particularly the mental health system. I think that the mental health system is driven by numbers and not by taking care of people. And I think we need to dig in our heels and get actively involved with veterans in our community and in our neighborhood. If we see somebody that has a problem, find out. You may see him at the bar at the VFW, and all of a sudden, his alarm goes off on his watch, so he looks at his watch and says, "Oh, time to take my meds," and he pops his pills. What kind of pills are you taking?
Right.
Wait a minute, you should not be mixing those pills with alcohol.
Right.
We need to be, without being aggressive, without being overbearing, we need to be sympathetic and empathetic. Because I know that, and this happened to me probably 15 years ago. I was at a reunion, and one of my friends from 1968 said, "What are you taking?" And I said, "Just VA meds."
Right.
And he says, "What are they?" And I said, "Well, I don't know off the top of my head, And there was another guy standing there, and his wife was an RN. He said, "Let's go on up to the room and take a look at your pills." And I pulled them on out, dumped them on the bed. She looked at it and said, "Blood pressure, good. Prostate, good. Thyroid, good. No, boom. No, boom." And just about 3 meds, she moved off to the side and said, "No. This is these are psycho drugs. You don't want to be taking these and drinking. Take your pick. Which one?" And I said, "Okay, thank you very much." I went and I dumped them down the toilet right there in the VA hospital, or right there in the motel. Kept on taking my other drugs. About 6 months later, the VA psychiatrist said, "You haven't reordered your prescriptions lately." And I said, "Yeah, I reorder them all the time." He said, "No, for these drugs, yeah." I said, "I don't take those anymore. I'm not going to take those anymore. I'm doing a world better. Now I just need to talk to my therapist." So you have to be aggressive and take responsibility for your own health, but at the same time, be empathetic when you see somebody else that may be having some issues. The veteran suicide rate, it really bothers me. I don't know. I really don't have an answer for it, but I do know that too often it's unrecognized suicide. It's called it's ruled as any one of a number of things, but it was really over medication. And we have to be very sensitive to that.
Mm-hmm. No, you hit so many different areas that are very tender spots to this heart right here, and that is I get so fed up with the VA always just checking the box. the money game, the
Yes.
dollars and cents, and the monopoly of them medicating the veterans to get more money, to get more funding, to show the government, oh yes, we are over medicating our veterans. I think, you may not have the specific answer. None of us have the specific answer, but I do blame the Veterans Administration for over medicating our veterans. I think that is attributing to the veteran suicide issue we have.
Yeah, and a lot of the veterans population, because they've been over medicated, they end up dropping out of the system, but they still need help, and so they get street drugs. Unprescribed street drugs, heroin, cocaine, marijuana, any one of a number of things. And at the same time, they're drinking. And that's why they're homeless and on the streets, because they can't work, so they don't have a place to live. And so I think that if we look at the over medicating issue from the VA side, from the private physician side, and look at the prescription drugs and start making a differentiation, and like I said, either getting them into a setting where you can get them clean, and get all garbage out of their system, and then once you get all the garbage out of their system, put them into the psychotherapy system so that they can talk their issues and learn what's going on and learn how to deal with what's going on. I think that, and get them back to the way they were when they were 18-year-old kids, and then start building up. Look at that pride that you had when you joined.
Yes.
Look at how positive and aggressive and good you are when you were joined. Now let's get back and start building up on that, with your years of experience. We're not going to make you an 18-year-old again. You're 35 years old now. We're going to make you a 35-year-old that's been, but we're going to grow you up from the time that you started getting stripped down to the point where you were a drug addict and an alcoholic and homeless and unable to work, unemployable. It's a multifaceted, multi-issue, and I don't blame the military. The military has a job to do.
Yes.
And they can't not accomplish their mission with people who are on drugs. They cannot accomplish their mission with people who show up to work drunk or hungover.
Right.
You've got to be able to, but they cannot accomplish their mission as long as you're in their ranks.
Right.
If you're in a unit and that unit requires 200 people, an infantry company, and 25% of that infantry company shows up hungover or strung out every day, then that infantry company cannot do its job, and it has to be able to do its job. But you cannot replace the people. You cannot get new people in to do the job while the people that are hungover or strung out are in the unit. You got to get rid of them first. It's a manpower issue, and it's a justifiable manpower issue. So once you start having a problem, you've got to turn it over to the medical side and let the medical side do its job. And I don't think that, with as much good as psychotherapy has done me, and I don't think, and as much bad, I think that the medical side has done me with the trying to put me on drugs, instead of, helping me resolve my issues. I just don't think that the medical industry does the right job. And I think that we need the psychotherapy part of the medical industry supported and built up. Just don't throw money at it, because when you throw money at it, it ends up going to the people with the most horsepower. And right now, the people with the most horsepower is the medical side of the house. And they take it down their side of the stovepipe, and the other side of the stovepipe doesn't get it and can't do its job. And as a result, the veterans go lacking. And I think we need to get that to where it's going to help the veterans.
Well, I'm going to leave it on that note. Larry McCartney, Master Gunnery Sergeant, retired, and as Stu would say, extraordinaire. You have served 2 Vietnam tours, 1 in Haiti and a few trips back to Vietnam. And you are a veteran advocate, and that is clear as day here at Common Sense America, helping veterans and their family members. Stu, I am so grateful. Stu and Jim introduced me to you, Larry. Mac, as everybody calls you. You are a gift to the veteran community. So thank you so much for what you are doing for our families here in Eastern North Carolina, for the families around the nation. And I'm going to have you back because we have a lot more to talk about. Veteran unemployment, underemployment, the burn pits, and what is ahead for our veterans. So I look forward to having you back. Thank you so much for joining this morning.
Thank you very so much for having me.
My pleasure. And for all of those who are tuning in here at Common Sense America, thank you so much for joining this special edition on veterans. Veteran advocate Mac has joined us here, and we're going to be bringing him back. We will be back here tomorrow. Have no fear. Put on the full armor of God, get out there and get to work. We have so much to do, ladies and gentlemen. And stay tuned. Many new episodes, many new announcements coming your way. Until then, I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a great Tuesday.
It's time for Common Sense America with